Welcome back to my channel, Crime Uncovered. For those of you who are logging in for the first time, I'm busy reading my book, Gotcha, by myself, Silke Kaiser. It's a book about my polygraph career. I learned a lot about crime. I had many stories to tell. So the book was published in 2017, and I am now reading it out piece by piece from each chapter. If you are logging on for the first time, please go to the very beginning, Gotcha, Chapter 1, Part 1, so that you remain up to date with what I'm reading, if the book does interest you. Without any further ado, let me pick up from where I left off yesterday, and do enjoy. And by the way, if you are enjoying this, please feel free to press the like button and to subscribe. It will be interesting to me to see how many followers I have. Thank you. We spoke to Gladys about this issue. We should not show any weakness whatsoever and be absolutely resolute in the face of what would be her denials. The matter called for tea as opposed to coffee. Tea with lots of sugar that would ease the tension. I made my way to the kitchen and I passed by Gladys. I offered her a cup. She refused. I did not want to convey that we had received the polygraphist's report. As we sipped the hot, soothing tea, Nikki told me that she had to fire Gladys. I knew that Nikki would not change her mind, even when I reminded her that Gladys would likely take her to the CCMA and that she, meaning Nikki, would lose. I don't care, declared Nikki. I would rather pay her out than not know what else she is stealing from me. God himself probably doesn't know what else she has stolen. This is such a brazen theft that this is not the first time she has done this. It was as if Nikki had read my mind. I totally agreed with her, and I wondered if Gladys had ever been fired from a previous job for theft. We called Gladys into Nikki's office. Nikki sat in her director's chair, and Gladys and I were seated next to each other, opposite Nikki. Nikki said to Gladys that the results had been emailed to her by the polygraphist. I noticed immediately that Gladys's body language seemed to become smaller, and her voice a bit quieter as she asked what the result was. Nikki asked her what she thought the result was, whether the machine showed if she stole the money or if it showed that she did not steal the money. Without any hesitation, Gladys said the machine showed she had not stolen the money. Nikki told her that she was mistaken and that the machine had in fact shown that she had failed her test, which meant that she had stolen the money. Gladys started crying, with no tears whatsoever, telling Nikki if she wanted to fire her, then she should just do it. There was no need to accuse her and make her suspect, and that she did not believe, in fact, that any money had been stolen. I knew then that Gladys was lying. I pointed out to her in a calm, monotone voice that she was crying, but there were no tears. Gladys told me there were tears and screwed her face up even more in a futile effort to force out some. I felt myself emotionally disconnect from her, and I became very clear-headed. Nikki sat and listened as I questioned Gladys. I asked her if she had ever been fired from a job. At first, Gladys pretended to not understand the word fired. As with most black South Africans, English was not her first language. But Gladys had understood and spoken English perfectly well up until that moment. I explained to her that fired meant to be chased away or dismissed. I saw the hesitation, and I knew she was thinking about an answer, and that it probably would not be the truth. I further explained to her that I would find out the truth. I had no idea how I was going to do this, but I was determined to find out who we had actually employed. When I say we, I meant Nikki. It was her shop after all. She then admitted that she had been fired from a job which did not appear on her CV for theft of eggs and fruit from a well-known food shop in South Africa. She quickly said that it was not her that had stolen the stock but a colleague, but because she was in the vicinity, it looked as if she was guilty. Nikki could only sit quietly as I took over the proceedings entirely. I told Gladys that she had failed to indicate this job in her CV and that this was a dismissible offence. as she had been employed based on the information provided on her CV. For the Americans, a CV is a resume. I then asked her if she had ever been given a warning or a disciplinary hearing in any of her other places of employment. She said she had not. Nikki expressed her surprise at the dismissal and told Gladys she was actually shocked. She wondered how she could ever not have suspected that Gladys had stolen from a previous place of work in the time that the two women had worked together. As Nikki processed this information, the sense of betrayal set in. I told Gladys that she was absolutely disappointed in her and that she had trusted her implicitly to the point of leaving her children with her. Nikki agreed to this and said that I was just speaking for her and speaking her thoughts. As the anger surfaced, Nikki reminded Gladys that she had been in the shop alone many times and that she could now never be sure that nothing else had been stolen. Throughout all of this, Gladys sat stony-faced and looked at the floor. I watched her face carefully and saw an unreadable expression in her eyes. I did not know it then, but on that day, that still-faced expression would become deeply familiar to me over the next 17 years. Gladys seemed to have emotionally and mentally left the room, as she gave no sign that she heard anything that Nikki had said. Finally, Nikki stood up and told Gladys that she was suspended on full pay pending an investigation. She warned Gladys that she was to present herself at work when requested to do so. Gladys picked up her handbag and walked out of the shop without so much as a backward glance. Nikki immediately set about calling a labour lawyer, who advised her that Gladys must sign a notice that clearly stated she was suspended on full pay pending a hearing and that the date and the time of the hearing should be clearly indicated. Upon Nikki's request, the labour lawyer emailed the document, which Nikki printed out. She then tried calling Gladys, but Gladys did not answer. Nikki then sent an SMS to Gladys, requesting her to come in at 9 a.m. the following morning. I then left the shop with my mind made up that I was going to be trained on conducting polygraphs. I was fascinated and I knew I was a natural at questioning people. My analytical mind could slice through information to get to the correct conclusion. I had always had this ability. I did not know that this decision would place me into situations where my calling in life would be realized. I would be led along a path where I would be placed on the front lines of crime in South Africa. I would experience many successes in identifying guilty parties of committing a crime and at times, to my delight, experience very real and present danger. As soon as I arrived home, I scoured information about being trained as a polygraphist. I phoned a number of institutions, but eventually settled on Polygraph SA, which was owned and managed by Cliff Coetzee. His very calm voice on the phone is what ironically grabbed my interest. That very afternoon, I was sitting in front of this tall, square of jaw, grey-haired man who was clearly wearing a back brace right there in his offices in Midrand. He told me he was glad that I was not young. I pointed out to him that I was only 39, but he said that someone of 21 years of age would find it hard to polygraph an older bank manager. The mere thought of polygraphing someone made me feel a bit lightheaded, but I smiled brightly, as if this was all in a day's work and nothing new to me. Cliff, in his calm demeanour, outlined the course contents to me and also warned me that I would deal with sexual abuse cases, murder cases, infidelity and arson. He also failed to mention that I would be dealing with farm attacks, which would become my passion and some would even say my speciality. I told Nikki all about my newfound passion to become a polygraphist, much to her surprise and amusement. I transferred the funds in full that very night as payment for my course, and so my adventures as a polygraphist officially began. And that's all for now. More very, very soon. Have a great day, everybody. Be safe.